Okay, so I want to start today's deep dive with a little visualization exercise. Humor me for a second.
Oh, okay.
I want you to close your eyes, unless you're driving, obviously, and just conjure up a mental image of a millionaire.
I think I know exactly where this is going.
You probably do. But seriously, what do you see? Are you picturing a sprawling estate in the Hamptons?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a cherry red Ferrari pulling into some big circular driveway.
Someone stepping out in a bespoke Italian suit.
Exactly. A $5,000 watch. Maybe they're sipping champagne on a private jet.
That is the standard Hollywood depiction,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Succession, it's the Wolf of Wall Street. It is, the cultural shorthand for wealth.
It is. But here's the hook, and it's a pretty sharp one. What if I told you that the person I just described,
The one with the Ferrari.
yeah, the one with the Ferrari and the mansion, is statistically more likely to be broke than the guy mowing his own lawn next door?
That is a bold opener.
And what if I told you that the actual American millionaire is, currently driving a 10-year-old Toyota,
Right.
living in a house that's actually smaller than the average new build, and wearing jeans they probably picked up at Walmart for $50?
And I'd say we are about to revisit one of the most counterintuitive yet statistically rigorous studies on wealth ever conducted.
You nailed it. Today we're doing a serious deep dive into The Next Millionaire Next Door by Thomas J. Stanley and his daughter Sarah Stanley Fala.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, the mission for today's discussion feels incredibly personal to me and probably to a lot of people listening.
And why is that?
Because the game feels rigged, doesn't it? I mean, I think that's the prevailing sentiment in the economy right now.
Absolutely.
You look at the housing market, you look at inflation, you look at stagnant wages, and the classic American promise, work hard, save money, get rich, it feels like a relic.
It feels like advice from a bygone era that just doesn't apply anymore.
Yes, it feels like it doesn't work in the modern world.
That is definitely the dominant narrative. There's this overwhelming sense that the ladder has been pulled up.
Mhm.
And then you open your phone, you scroll through Instagram or TikTok, and wealth looks a very specific way.
Oh, yeah.
It's crypto windfalls, it's tech IPOs, or it's, inherited trust funds.
Yeah.
The idea of slowly building wealth on just a normal salary, it feels almost impossible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It feels like you either win the lottery or you just tread water forever. But we have a stack of research today. I mean, actual data, not just vibes, that claims otherwise.
Right.
So we're going to test that rigged game hypothesis. Is the millionaire next door actually dead, or are we just looking for him in all the wrong places?
And maybe more importantly, are we looking for the wrong things?
Mm.
Because the core tension of this entire deep dive in the book itself is the massive fundamental gap between income and wealth.
Right. We tend to use those words interchangeably, but they are not the same thing at all.
They're completely different. I mean, income is what you bring home today. It's your paycheck. Wealth is what you have left tomorrow. It's your net worth. And as we're going to find out, those two things are often completely at odds with each other. You can have a massive income and absolutely zero wealth.
Okay, so we have a massive amount of ground to cover. We're going to break down the surprising math behind who these millionaires actually are. And spoiler alert, they are painfully normal.
Almost boringly so.
Yes.
Right.
We're going to look at the Ferrari math that explains why luxury cars are often a giant red flag for financial insecurity.
Right.
And we're going to get into the specific day-to-day behaviors from, what you eat for lunch to who you choose to marry that statistically predict whether you end up wealthy or not.
It really is a fascinating look at the psychology of money, not just the economics of it.
So, okay, let's jump right in. We have to address the skeptics immediately.
The elephant in the room.
The elephant in the room.
Yeah.
This book is a follow-up to the original 1996 classic, The Millionaire Next Door. That book was a phenomenon. But 1996 was a long, long time ago. We've had the dot-com crash, the 2008 financial crisis, a global pandemic, massive inflation. A lot of critics say, sure, saving money worked when interest rates were high and houses were cheap. But that advice is dead. You can't coupon your way to $1 million anymore.
It's a valid criticism on the surface. I mean,
Yeah.
The economic landscape has shifted. There's no question.
Hmm.
Housing costs relative to income are way higher.
Oh, yeah.
Education costs are astronomical.
Yeah.
But Sarah Stanley Fala, who's the daughter of the original author and a beta scientist in her own right, she went back to the numbers. She surveyed thousands of affluent Americans to see if the old rules still applied in this new, harsher economy.
And what was the verdict? Is it dead?
The verdict was that the data holds up. The behaviors for building wealth have not changed in 20 years. The math still works.
Wow.
In fact, she argues that the Millionaire Next Door concept is arguably more relevant now because the headwinds are stronger.
Oh, that's interesting. How so?
Well, you can't rely on a generous corporate pension anymore. You can't rely on Social Security to cover everything. The discipline required to build wealth on your own is the only variable you actually control.
And we actually see this popping up in modern culture, too,
Yeah.
if you know where to look. The source material highlights the FIRE community.
Ah, yes. Financial independence, retire early.
Yes. If you want proof that this isn't just, boomer advice, look at the FIRE movement. You have people in their 30s, software engineers, teachers, project managers, who are achieving financial independence not by inventing the next Facebook, but by hacking their spending.
The authors mention Mr. Money Mustache. He's sort of a legend in that space.
I love that guy. He has this incredibly aggressive way of describing normal spending habits.
He does. He calls the typical middle-class lifestyle an exploding volcano of wastefulness.
An exploding volcano of wastefulness.
It's such a vivid image, isn't it?
It's meant to be shocking. His point, and the point of the book, is that we are just bleeding money on things that don't actually make us happy.
And that bleeding is what keeps us from being wealthy. It's not that we don't earn enough. It's that our efficiency is terrible. We're pouring water into a bucket full of holes.
So let's try to patch some of those holes by looking at the profile. Who is the typical millionaire today? If we strip away the Instagram filters and look at the raw data, who are we talking about?
Okay, let's look at the averages. Statistically, you're looking at a 61-year-old man.
Okay, so lesson one right there. Patience. This isn't a get-rich-quick scheme.
No, it's a get-rich-slow scheme.
Yes.
Exactly. It takes time for compound interest to do the heavy lifting.
Right.
Now let's look at relationships. About 69% are in their first marriage, and another 25% are remarried.
So stable relationships seem to be a really big theme.
Hugely important. Being single is expensive. You don't have shared costs. And divorce is financially catastrophic, which we will definitely talk more about later.
Correct.
But here's the number that really jumps out at me. The median net worth of this group is $3.5 million.
$3.5 million, that's a very healthy number. That's never work again money for most people.
It is. But now look at their median income. It's about $250,000.
Okay, I want to pause there for a second. $250,000 is a lot of money. I don't want to gloss over that. That is well above the national average.
It is high, unquestionably.
Yeah.
But think about it in terms of multiples. Their income is maybe 4 times the national average,
Okay.
but their net worth, it's probably 30 or 40 times the average wealth.
I see what you're saying. So the gap between their income and the average income is much smaller than the gap between their wealth and the average wealth.
Exactly. There are plenty of people making $250,000 a year who have zero net worth or negative.
Right. They spend it all.
They spend it all. These people are converting that income into wealth at an incredibly high efficiency rate.
Yeah.
That's the magic. It's the conversion rate, not just the wrong input.
And how they achieve that conversion rate comes down to spending. The specific details on their spending habits are, they're hilarious to me because they are so unglamorous. The book lists the maximum amount these millionaires have ever spent on certain items.
These numbers always shock people.
Okay, take a guess. The maximum amount a typical millionaire has ever spent on a pair of jeans.
Well, looking at the data, it's $50.
$50. 50. That is literally a pair of Levi's on sale.
Sunglasses. $150. A watch.
$300.
$300 for a watch.
Think about what society tells us a rich person wears. It's a $10,000 Rolex, right? $500 designer denim, maybe some Tom Ford shades.
Right.
We are programmed to believe that wealth equals brand names. But the data says that people who actually have the bank balance are wearing a Seiko and jeans from Costco.
And cars, oh man, cars are the big one. This is the ultimate status symbol in America.
It is. And the top brands for actual millionaires are not Ferrari, Lamborghini, or even, Range Rover. What's that?
They are Toyota, Honda, and Ford. The average purchase price for their most recent car was $35,000.
That's a Camry.
It is a Camry, or a 3-year-old Ford F-150. And the most they've ever spent on a car, on average, is about $40,000.
That is barely the price of a mid-range SUV these days.
Exactly. They buy reliable transportation. They drive them for 10 years. They don't lease. They avoid that whole depreciation trap. They realize that a car is a tool to get from point A to point B, not a billboard for their net worth.
To really make this concrete, the book introduces us to a family the Jacobsons. I love this case study because they just seem so aggressively normal.
The Jacobsons are the perfect archetype. The husband is a PhD chemical engineer. The wife is also a chemical engineer. So, these are smart people with good careers. They aren't scraping by.
Not at all.
But they live in a 1,900 square foot house.
Which, for context, is smaller than the average new American home today.
Right. They could easily afford a McMansion. But they stay in their modest house. And because they've lived there for 20 years and just banked their income, they are in the top 10% of net worth in the country. They are unquestionably millionaires.
But the detail that really stuck with me is the fast food story.
It's classic. The mother makes the kids order from the value menu at fast food restaurants.
The value menu.
Value menu, yes. And the kids actually ask her, "Mom, are we poor?"
That is just amazing.
They see their friends ordering the expensive combos, getting the supersize, getting the big toys, and they assume that because they can't have that, they must be broke. They have no idea their parents are sitting on a fortune.
That is the essence of stealth wealth. But, I can hear a listener right now thinking, okay, that's great for them, but is that a good life? Eating off the dollar menu when you have millions in the bank? Isn't that just being a miser?
And that's the philosophical pushback, right? What is money for? But
Yeah.
I think the Jacobsons would argue that the stress reduction of having that financial cushion, the freedom to quit a job, the ability to pay for college in cash, the security, that tastes better than the Big Mac combo.
It's a trade-off.
It is a trade-off. They are trading consumption for freedom.
And that leads us perfectly into the math of this, because we need to clarify this distinction between income and wealth once and for all.
It is the single biggest misconception in personal finance. Income is the river, wealth is the reservoir.
Right.
You can have a raging river of income, but if the reservoir has a hole in the bottom, you end up dry.
The book talks about the high earner trap.
It's a very, very dangerous place to be. Imagine someone earning $1 million a year. By all social standards, they are rich.
Absolutely.
But if they spend $1.2 million a year on a lifestyle to prove they are rich, the private schools, the club memberships, the vacations, their net worth change is negative. They are getting poorer every single year.
It's a treadmill.
It's a treadmill that is moving faster and faster.
Contrast that with the median net worth in the U.S. This stat actually scared me a little bit.
It is sobering. The median net worth, meaning your growing assets minus your debts, is only about $97,300.
That is not a lot of safety net.
That's barely enough for 1 year in a nursing home. And that's the median. That means half the country has less than that.
Wow.
So we have a country with high average incomes compared to the rest of the world, but very low wealth accumulation. We're earning, but we are burning it just as fast.
So how do we know if we are on the right track? The authors provide a specific formula for expected net worth. I want to walk through this because it's a great heuristic for anyone listening to kind of audit themselves.
It is. It's a quick way to check your financial health. The formula is take your age, multiply it by your pre-tax annual household income, and then divide by 10.
Age times income divided by 10. Okay, let's do a quick example. Let's say I'm 40 years old and my household income is $100,000.
Okay, 40 times 100,000 is 4 million. Divide by 10. That's $400,000.
So if I'm 40 making $100K, I should have a net worth of $400,000.
Correct. If you are significantly above that number, say double that, you are what they call a paw, a prodigious accumulator of wealth. You are winning the game.
And if I'm below it?
Then you are a UAW, an underaccumulator of wealth. You might look rich, you might have a high salary, but your balance sheet is weak. They call this the income statement affluent. You look great on the income statement, the salary line is huge, but the balance sheet is empty.
I think a lot of people listening are probably doing that mental math right now and maybe feeling a little bit of panic.
And that's okay. The point isn't to shame anyone. The point is to realize that income does not equal wealth. If you are a UAW, it just means you are efficient at spending, not saving. And that's a behavior you can change.
There's another rule here that I found fascinating, and it's a bit more technical, but it explains why the rich get richer, the 8.2% rule.
Yes. This helps explain the tax advantage of the Millionaire Next Door. They found that for a typical millionaire, their realized annual income, the income they actually report on their tax return, is only equivalent to about 8.2% of their total wealth.
Can we unpack realized versus unrealized here? Because that feels like the key.
Sure. Realized income is money that hits your bank account. Your salary, Dividends you cash out, stocks you sell, that is taxable. The IRS sees it and takes a cut.
Right.
Unrealized wealth is growth that happens on paper. If your house goes up in value by $100,000, you are $100,000 richer, but you don't pay tax on that until you sell.
So if your stock portfolio doubles but you don't sell, you don't pay tax.
Exactly. So the game is to keep the wealth growing in that unrealized bucket for as long as possible.
Okay.
If you are a high-earning doctor making $500,000 a year in salary, that is all realized. You're getting hammered by taxes. 37% or more is just gone. But the millionaire next door might have a net worth of $5 million, but they only realize $250,000 of income to live on. They pay way less tax relative to their total wealth.
The comparison they make is to Warren Buffett.
The master.
Yeah.
1 year, Buffett's taxable income was something like 0.087% of his net worth.
Wow.
He is worth billions, but on paper, for tax purposes, he makes very little relative to his size. The goal is to look more like Buffett, minimize the taxable cash flow, maximize the asset growth.
Okay, so we have the profile and we have the math. But to actually become this person, we have to overcome some serious cultural programming.
Oh, yeah.
The book dedicates a whole section to busting myths, and the first one is about identity. You are your group.
This is the idea that demographics are destiny. We hear this a lot. I can't be wealthy because I'm an immigrant, or I wasn't born into the right family, or, my industry doesn't pay enough.
But the data just pushes back on this hard.
It does. They share the story of a first-generation immigrant who arrived in the U.S. at age 7. His family had absolutely nothing. He eventually went into the tech industry. Now, tech pays well, so that helps. But the key wasn't just the income. He saved 50% of everything he made.
50%. That is extreme.
It is extreme. But he never bought a watch. He never spent more than $200 on shoes. He retired at age 41 with rental income covering all his expenses.
Wow.
He didn't let his group identity or his starting point define his financial finish line. He controlled the variable he could control, his savings rate.
Myth number 2 is my favorite because it's just so funny, and it involves a character named Ranger X Rich.
Ah, yes. The park ranger. This anecdote perfectly captures our biases.
It really does.
So this ranger works at a park where you have to pay for parking. And he admits to the researchers that he specifically targets luxury cars for tickets.
Why? Is he some kind of Robin Hood?
Sort of. He assumes, look at this guy in the BMW. He's rich. Rich people are greedy and don't pay taxes, so he probably didn't pay for parking either. He sees the hood ornament and assumes tax cheat.
But he's wrong on, 2 levels.
Completely wrong. First, as we just discussed, the majority of actual millionaires aren't driving those cars. So he's ticketing what the authors call aspirational drivers.
Ah, people who look rich.
People who lease the car to look rich but probably can't afford the ticket. The data shows that 86% of luxury car drivers are not millionaires.
That is a wild stat. 86% of the people in the BMWs and Mercedes are not millionaires.
Correct. They are high income, low net worth. They are the UAWs. But the Ranger's second mistake is the idea that the rich don't pay taxes.
Which is myth number 3. The idea that if you have a Ferrari, you must be dodging the IRS.
Right. We hear about the loopholes for the super rich, but for the glittering rich, the people buying high-end consumption goods, they pay massive amounts of tax.
There's the Ferrari math example in the book.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
Let's say you want to buy a $330,000 Ferrari. You can't just earn $330,000.
Right. You got to pay tax first.
You need to earn that money, pay income tax on it, and then buy the car. So to have $330,000 after tax, you probably need to earn about $600,000 pre-tax.
So that car represents $600,000 of labor.
Yes. And the government took nearly $270,000 of that in taxes. High consumption requires massive high tax income to support it. If you see someone spending like that, they are likely the government's best customer.
There's that funny story about Checkpoint Carlo in Italy that proves this point.
This actually happened. The Italian police started setting up checkpoints in resort towns, just pulling over supercars.
That's amazing.
They would check the driver's license against their tax records right there on the spot.
And what did they find?
They found that something like 6 out of 42 drivers of these supercars had reported incomes that were practically at the poverty level.
So they were tax evaders.
Either that, or they were living off capital, or they were deep in debt. But the point is, the car did not match the reported income. It suggests that displaying wealth is often a shell game. You're either burning cash you paid huge taxes on, or you're faking it.
Which leads to the final big myth. Wealth is inherited. We hear this all the time. The system is rigged. You have to be born rich.
It's a comforting lie, isn't it? It absolves us of responsibility. If the game is rigged, why even try?
Right.
But the data in the book is stark. 80 to 86% of millionaires are self-made.
86%.
That means they didn't start with millions. And when asked, 86% of them said they received $0 from trusts or estates in the previous year. They are not living off daddy's money. They built it.
That just completely dismantles the rich or lucky narrative.
It does. And it puts the ball back in our court. If 86% are self-made, then the path is open. It's just hard.
Okay, so we know what they don't do. They don't buy $500 jeans, they don't drive Ferraris, and they don't rely on inheritance. So what do? The book breaks down these pillars of behavior, and the number one factor, rated by 91% of millionaires, is the D word.
Discipline.
It's not sexy, is it? We want a secret stock pick. We want a crypto tip.
We do. But the secret is that there is no secret. It's simple addition and subtraction applied consistently over decades. It's the discipline to track what you spend. 70% of millionaires know exactly how much they spend on food, clothing, and shelter every single year. Do you know that number for yourself?
Most people definitely don't. I mean, I probably couldn't tell you within a few $1,000s.
And that awareness is the first step of discipline.
Yeah.
You can't manage what you don't measure. But there's a psychological component to this discipline too, which the book calls social indifference.
This is the ability to ignore the Joneses.
It is the superpower of the wealthy. Sociometrics tells us that our satisfaction is often tied to who we compare ourselves to. If you live in a neighborhood where everyone drives a Tesla, you feel poor in a Honda. If you live where everyone takes the bus, the Honda feels like a luxury.
There's a case study of a woman, Mrs. C, that illustrates this perfectly.
Mrs. C is great. She had a neighbor who was constantly bragging, look at my new car, look at my renovation, look at my expensive vacation. It was just this constant barrage of consumption.
And it's so easy to feel jealous of that. You start to think, why can she afford that and I can't?
Exactly. But Mrs. C realized something profound. She analyzed the situation and realized her neighbor was waiting for the payday to fund her retirement. The neighbor was living paycheck to fund the image of wealth. Mrs. C was already secure. She realized that the spending was actually a sign of weakness, not strength.
That reframing is so powerful, seeing spending as weakness. But man, marketing makes that hard. The book brings up the Pantene shampoo effect. This was fascinating to me.
This is a study done by Procter & Gamble. They wanted to figure out how to sell more shampoo. And they found that bad hair days were psychologically linked to feelings of hostility, shame, and social insecurity.
Shame from bad hair.
It sounds ridiculous, but think about it. If you feel you look bad, you feel less confident, you feel judged.
I guess that's true.
So the insight for marketers is make people feel insecure, and they will buy anything to fix it.
So the entire industry is built on manufacturing shame.
Your teeth aren't white enough. Your car isn't new enough. Your vacation isn't exotic enough. If they can make you feel less than, they can sell you the cure.
So wealth requires inoculating yourself against that.
Exactly. You have to realize that the shame you feel is manufactured to separate you from your money. The millionaire next door doesn't care if their hair isn't perfect or their car is 10 years old. They are immune to the marketing of shame. They've opted out of the game.
And they're consistent about it. The book points out that frugality often becomes trendy during recessions. Like, suddenly it's cool to use coupons when the economy crashes.
Right. But the true millionaire is frugal all the time. They don't just save when they are scared. They save when they are flush. That consistency is what allows the compound interest to work its magic. They don't increase their lifestyle just because they got a raise.
Let's talk about where these habits come from, the whole nature versus nurture thing. How much does our upbringing actually matter?
It matters a lot. 70% of millionaires report having frugal parents. Modeling is powerful. If you saw your parents saving, you are more likely to save.
There's the story of John C. in the book. His dad told all 6 of his kids, I'm not paying a dime for your college.
Which sounds incredibly harsh today. Most parents want to provide everything for their kids.
It does, but what happened?
All 6 graduated on their own. They worked, they got scholarships. And John C. took that lesson of self-reliance and taught his own son to save 90% of his earnings.
90%.
He taught him to live on 10%. That breaks the cycle of dependency. It teaches you that you are the engine of your own success.
On the flip side of that, you have what the book calls economic outpatient care.
This is when wealthy parents give cash gifts to their adult children to support their lifestyle. They subsidize the rent. They pay the car note. The data shows this is disastrous.
Why? I mean, shouldn't helping your kids give them a leg up?
You would think. But it turns out that hyperspending parents raise hyperspending children. And if you subsidize them, they never learn the discipline we just talked about. They learn to wait for the check.
So the rule is, never tell your children you are wealthy.
Or at least teach them to live as if they aren't. Because once the expectation of the handout is there, the discipline just evaporates.
Now we have to talk about the spouse. Because you can be as disciplined as you want, but if your partner is spending it all out the back door...
It's game over. 93% of millionaires are married.
Yeah.
And divorce is a wealth destroyer. It decreases wealth by 77% on average.
That is a staggering number. A 77% hit.
It is. Wealth building is a team sport. They describe it as one spouse being the chief procurement officer, the shopper, and the other being the CFO. They have to be in alignment. If one is saving and the other is buying Ferraris, the boat sinks.
They tell the story of Henry and Sally. This was a close call.
So Henry was engaged to Sally. He was doing well financially. But then he found out Sally had defaulted on a bunch of loans. And more importantly, she just assumed Henry would pay them off once they got married.
She expected a bailout.
Right. And Henry broke off the engagement. Not just because of the debt, but because it revealed a fundamental difference in values. Millionaires tend to value unselfishness and down-to-earth qualities in a mate. Financial compatibility is romantic compatibility.
There's a new influence today that Henry didn't have to deal with, and that's technology. The book argues that social media is the new Joneses machine.
It's the Joneses on steroids. We spend an average of 2 hours a day on social media. Millionaires, they spend about 2.5 hours a week.
Wow, that is a massive difference in input.
And think about what that input does. If you spend 2 hours a day looking at curated, fake lives of people on vacation and buying new things, your brain is constantly being triggered to spend. You are bathing in relative deprivation. You feel poor because your feed looks rich.
So cutting that off or drastically reducing it is part of the discipline.
It's essential. You can't be socially indifferent if you are digitally addicted to comparison.
Okay, let's move to the final segment here. We've covered the person, the math, the behavior. Now let's talk about the biggest trap of all, the freedom to consume. Specifically, housing.
The house trap. This is where most people lose the game before they even start. The authors state it very clearly. The market value of your home is the best predictor of your consumption.
Unpack that. Why does the house predict how much I spend on other things?
Because of the neighborhood effect. If you stretch to buy a house in a blue blood estate, a really high-end neighborhood, you aren't just paying the mortgage, you are entering a social contract.
A social contract? How so?
You are now socially pressured to drive the right car for that driveway. You can't park a rusty Honda in a neighborhood of Porsches.
Right.
You feel pressure to wear the right watch for the block party. You feel pressure to send your kids to the private school that all the neighbors' kids go to. The house dictates the entire lifestyle.
So buying the dream house forces you to upgrade everything else around it.
Exactly. It triggers a cascade of spending.
So what's the rule? How do millionaires avoid this trap?
Millionaires rarely buy homes costing more than 3 times their annual income.
3 times. In today's market, that sounds really tough. If you make $100K, that's a $300K house. In many cities, that doesn't even exist.
It is very tough. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. But the math doesn't care about the market conditions. If you go above that, say you buy a house that is 5 or 6 times your income, you become house poor. You have the asset, but you have no cash flow left to save.
They give the case study of Jerry. Poor Jerry.
Jerry is a tragic figure. He was a computer programmer doing fine, but he felt the pressure to trade up. He went from a $280,000 home to a $495,000 home. He thought, I can make the payments.
That's the classic mistake, right? Can I make the monthly payment versus can I afford the house?
Right. But he forgot about everything else. The property taxes went up. The utilities went up to heat the bigger place. The pressure to furnish the bigger house went up. That you can't have empty rooms.
Oh, yeah.
It completely wiped out his ability to save. He traded his future freedom for a guest bedroom he probably rarely used.
This applies to doctors, too. The book calls it the doctor's dilemma.
Physicians are the tragic figures of this book in a way. They have these huge incomes, but often negative net worth.
Why?
Because society expects the doctor to play the part.
We expect the doctor to be rich.
We do. And they fall for it. They buy the big house, the luxury car, the $700 watch. They are signaling status rather than building security. They are working incredibly hard just to service the debt on the image of success.
And this brings us to the distinction between the millionaire next door and what the book calls the glittering rich.
The glittering rich are the ones who actually have the $10 million net worth and can afford the Ferraris. But the funny thing is, even they face peer pressure.
The Corvette story.
This was amazing. A wealthy executive named Gillis wanted to buy a Corvette. He could easily afford it. Cash, no problem. But he didn't.
Why not?
Because his neighbors in his blue blood neighborhood would disapprove. They drove Porsches and Mercedes. A Corvette was considered too gold chain, too tacky, too. Midlife crisis.
So even when you are rich, you aren't free if you care about status.
Exactly. He had the money, but he didn't have the freedom to drive the car he actually wanted because he was a slave to his neighbor's opinions. That is the ultimate irony of consumption. You buy things to show you're free, but the buying traps you.
So let's bring this all together. We've covered a ton of ground here. We've busted the myths. We've done the math. We've looked at the psychology. What does this all mean for the person listening right now?
It means that wealth is a behavior, not a paycheck. We spend so much time focusing on getting the raise, the promotion, the side hustle. And those things are important. You need income to save. But if you pour that water into a bucket full of holes, you'll never fill it.
The holes are the myths. The holes are the status seeking. The holes are the lack of discipline.
Precisely. The Millionaire Next Door is about patching the holes. It's about realizing that rich is a status, but wealth is freedom.
And that freedom is what really matters. It's not about swimming in coins like Scrooge McDuck. It's about freedom from a boss you hate. Freedom from debt anxiety. Freedom to do what you want with your time.
That's the so what. Why deny yourself the nice car? Why eat off the value menu? Not because you love being cheap, but because you love freedom more than you love the status symbol. You are buying your own life back $1 at a time.
I want to leave everyone with a final thought from the source material. We talked about that Pantene study, how bad hair makes you feel shame. We talked about the Joneses. Ask yourself this question next time you pull out your credit card. Am I buying this because I need it? Or am I buying it because a marketer or a neighbor just made me feel like I wasn't enough?
That is the million-dollar question. If you can answer that honestly, you are halfway there.
And for a practical step, go calculate your expected net worth. Age times income divided by 10. See where you stand. It might be a wake-up call or it might be a confirmation, but you can't improve what you don't measure.
Absolutely. Get the number, face the reality, and start building.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. Until next time, keep your eyes on the road, not on the car in the lane next to you.
Stay disciplined.